All right. So yeah, you can customize the way the actual patch performs with macros. So one of the things you definitely want to do if you're trying to reverse engineer a patch is go in and figure out what macros are set up on it and how they're assigned. Because if you go in and like actually edit the patch itself, the macros may override that. Or you're like, I thought I fixed the delay on this. It's set to 0. Why am I hearing a delay? Well, the macro value is set to 30. And that was one that I actually figured out gave me trouble on this particular one because the original version of this patch had like a really long sort of like ringing, bouncing, ringing sound going on it, which is cool. But in the context of the project that I was putting it in, it just caused all sorts of harmonic silliness. After that part of the music that I wanted had played, so I had to go in here and try to find a way to remove some of the delay and reverb. If you look at all these buttons here, it's kind of laid out in like a workflow. So like you would start here with your oscillators, right? So you got 3 oscillators, pick which ones you want to use. And in each of those, you can do just a simple like sine wave or triangle wave or something like that. Or you can do a wave scan where you get a whole bunch of different wave samples that you can pick from. And you can either use just one, or you can put it in wave scan mode where it will hop through them as part of playing the patch. And you can set the way that it hops through the wave scan by using your LFOs.
Is the Hydrasynth true analog or is it virtual analog?
It is virtual. So
Okay,
this is all digital inside. It does
gotcha.
have a voice feature in here where you can go and try and give it a more of an analog feel, analog FL. So here's the full virtual sound. And then you add the analog feel to it. Supposedly that gives it more warmth. And then it also has warmth mode. And as I understand in all those cases, it's just introducing more randomness to it to make it seem a little bit less fixed. So anyway, yeah, all digital. And so you got 3 oscillators. The first 2 are like full powered oscillators. So you have the ability to access the wave scan and the single wave mode. And then you can also say how many different waves you want to use in there and then set the semi or semitone scale of your sound. And so you have 3 different oscillators. The third one does not give you the wave scan, so you can only do single form waves on the third one. So it's a simplified version of it, but it does come with ring noise addition in that workflow. So you can use oscillator 3 in combination with ring or noise. And that's all set up in the ring noise button here. The first 2 oscillators are full powered oscillators. You have the ability to select a wave scan, or do a single sound source like a sine wave or a saw wave. And then you can send those through mutants. And so you have 2 mutants on each of your oscillators. And these are going to do things like FM Lin, wave stack, oscillator sync. I forget what all of these different things do, but there are different ways of mutating the sound, making changes to it as it's coming out of the oscillator. And there's all sorts of crazy, wacky stuff that you can do. I guess, Zach, you probably already know this, but everything that I'm talking about can be modified in the mod matrix. So if you want to if you want a mutant to be mutating around and moving and shifting and doing whatever, you can set something in the mod matrix to do that, tie it to one of the LFOs or something, and have it dance around and do all sorts of wacky stuff. So these 3, go ahead.
That little diagram with the buttons, is that showing the signal flow through
Yes.
the, okay.
You've got oscillator 1, 2, 3. Oscillator 1 goes through mutant 1 and mutant 2. Oscillator 2 goes through mutant 3, mutant 4. And then oscillator 3 doesn't have all the mutants on it, but it does have the ring noise. And then all of these flow into the mixer. And when you look in the mixer, I don't know if you can see this. I can put the camera down closer. You can set the actual rate of the mix. So right now, this particular patch is only using oscillator 1. I think some of the macros are actually changing the other oscillators because they are set up in here. There's stuff set up for them. But yeah, in the mixer, you can specify what mix of those 3 channels you want blended together and how you want them. So right now it's 100% oscillator 1, but I can add oscillator 2 in, and I can add oscillator 3 in. Get different mixes, and then I can hit the solo button and try each of the different oscillators by themselves. See how they each sound together, and then maybe think, oh, I like that sound. I want some more of that. Let me turn this back off, and then I'll turn this sound up a little bit. So that's the mixer. It just basically says all the stuff you've come up with so far are your mutated oscillators. How do you want them mixing together? And then you've got 2 filters that can be applied in serial or parallel. And these are just low pass, band pass, high pass type filters that you can put on there. There's more complex stuff you can choose to do in there, but it's some variation of that type of filter where you can set the cutoff and different curves for how you're letting the sound go through the filter. And envelope 1 and LFO 1. So the bottom row here are all LFOs, and the top row up here are all envelopes. The envelope 1 is by default tied to the filters. So anything you do in the filter will automatically be modified by the envelope 1, and anything you change in envelope 1 will modify the filters. The same is true for LFO 1. Now you can go and unmap that stuff if you want, but that's the way it's set up by default. And so generally when you think, oh, okay, it's got 5 LFOs and 5 oscillators on it, the first 2 are really assigned to either the filters or the amp. And so if you wanted to use them for something else, you would need to take them off or use them in tandem with the fact that they are modifying the filters and the amp. But the other 3, LFO 3, 4, and 5, envelope 3, 4, and 5, these are just random sitting out there by themselves, envelopes and LFOs. You can apply to anything in the mod matrix that you can think of, including really weird stuff like ribbons and sustains and CV inputs. I think it's got CV on it. It's got, yeah, you can do all sorts of weird stuff with the mod matrix.
And then the filter controls that are on the left, those are like, where are
these
those
here?
in the signal flow? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not 100% on how all of this works. What I do know is like which ones these are tied to. But this is like a master filter resonance and drive morph control. And you can use it to just adjust the cutoff for the whole thing. And I think, now that I think about it, actually, I think this filter 1 and this filter 2 applies to this filter 1 and this filter 2. So if you want like quick on-hand control of what this filter is doing without going over it here and modifying it in the filter settings itself, you have like a master like live play, sort of like, oh, I'm going to go into filter 1. I'm going to bring that cutoff over here.
Well, that little display is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, not literally huge.
Not literally. You contradicted yourself.
Yeah. That tiny display is huge.
Oh, you're talking about the filter controls?
Well, just being able to see what you're doing on that little display below the knob is really nice. That's all I was saying. It's, you know, as you were changing your cutoff frequency, you can see what you're doing in that little.
Yeah, this little display here is actually really cool because like when you're playing sounds, it'll give you the sound wave.
Oh, that's cool.
And the other cool thing about this is like I actually need this patch not to be modified because I'm using it in a recording and I've done all sorts of crap with it. But so long as I don't save it, I dial off of it, back to it.
And then nice. Back to work. Okay. So as long, you see, you have to intentionally write it to save it.
Yeah, you gotta
Okay.
tap that save button twice
Yeah.
there.
Oh, nice.
The first time you tap it, the menu will change over here, and you can save it somewhere else if you want it, or give it a different name, modify stuff about it. But if you tap the save twice,
There's no like single undo, I imagine, right?
no, there's no undo really at all anywhere in the Hydrasynth that I would think of as an undo. Like I got undo in the MPC, I use it all the time, but in the Hydrasynth, it's like the only way through is forward.
Got it.
But I do have the pseudo undo. If I haven't saved it, I can always just go up the patch and come back, and it'll be right back to where it was when I saved it.
I imagine it's easy enough to just do a save as in case you want to keep the original intact.
Yeah, and that's what it'll do if I'm copying a patch is I'll hit the save button once. I won't hit it twice. And then I have an option over here of going and changing the target. So right now it's saving to spot G19, but I could move it to G20, for example.
Got it. Okay.
And I can also change the category and say, oh, this isn't really a percussion thing. This is a bell, and I could give it a different name. The naming, changing the name in here is kind of wonky because you got to use these dials with the buttons and scroll. But you're not naming things all that often, so fine.
It's like a video game high score entry thing.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, but that's common on a lot of hardware synths to have something like that for saving your patches.
That's cool. It's a good rundown.
And then, so then you have the amp. The amp is just basically setting your levels. And then you have pre-effects and post-effects that are feeding into your delay and your reverb. So you have a dedicated section in your workflow for the delay and the reverb, but then any of your other effects that you might want to put on there, chorus, flanger, rotary, phaser, lo-fi, tremolo, EQ, compression, distortion, all that stuff you put on one of these two. And so you can do, so I've got distort on here now. Turn that signal up, give it more drive. And then, you got post effects, which is the same. I think there's actually fewer options on the post effects than the pre effects, but you still got a lot of them. Flanger, rotary, tremolo, EQ, compression, distortion.
Wait, so on top of reverb and delay, you have 2 more slots and then a third post effect slot. Is that what you're saying?
You have 4 effect slots altogether. One dedicated to delay, one dedicated to reverb, and then a pre-effects and a post-effects to put other things that you might want on there. But those are just like effects to a sound that's going through there. You can generate all sorts of other different types of effects based on how you use the mod matrix. I mean, you can go wild with these LFOs and have them doing all sorts of really silly stuff. Like, let me show you, I've got this other one here that I put together from watching a video. So this, not this one. Maybe it was this one. You can actually program like mutating sounds that just basically, you hold the key down and it just sort of like shifts through waveforms and different things being applied to it. And so it's not ever like doing the same thing over and over again.
That sounds great. Is that just a preset then? Is that what you said?
I built this one.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Using a video I watched on YouTube, actually.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be able to tell you how this one is created. It'd be like, let's go investigate, because it's complicated. It's got some weird LFO stuff.
There's a lot going on.
How extreme can you get this? I can just get that to stop.
And I see a whole section on the top left. It says arpeggiator.
The arpeggiator. It's got a pretty good arpeggiator. I don't use it all that often, but it's certainly there. Put it not on ambient. Be good. Here's one I created. This is from scratch here. I called it FUXX. Because I was fuxing around. So you can do up and down, up, two, down, only up. You can do it random. You can do chord phrasing. You can also shift the octaves. If you're too lazy to hold your fingers down, you can hit the latch button.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Just let it go, and then you can just do all sorts of wacky stuff. You can adjust the swing, so how smoothly it's transitioning from note to note, and then the timing.
Mm-hmm.
Do the division. And you can also put it in a triplet mode.
I would play with that all day.
I know, right? I'm like completely mesmerized.
So that is the Hydrasynth, a really cool
Sweet.
piece of kit. You can make some really cool sounds on it. I did a lot of research, like figuring out what was going to be my first synth. This is definitely like on the higher end complexity wise. And one of the things that I've noticed about working with it is it has a lot of capability and it can make a lot of unique sounds, but it's like scanning the galaxy for stars, right? It's not like every turn of the knob is going to hit something magical. In fact, if you go into the randomizer and just like say, oh, we got a random button here, you can just generate a patch and it'll just randomly set all of the settings or whatever. Half the time you're not even going to get any sound.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Oh, this is I didn't generate the patch. Okay, oh crap. Let me rotate out of here so I don't accidentally save.
Okay. So what's interesting is that this now is actually speaking to me, because the only synth stuff I know is like the modular stuff like VCV rack. But now that I understand that all those modules are just those buttons laying across the face of it, like now I get it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, if you pan left, you'd see it actually has some CV connections on it, right?
Oh, does it?
Yeah, there are.
On the.
It's got pitch, gate, mod 1, mod 2, and clock CV on there.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It also has, you can't see it here, but it's got the finger strips for pitch and mod.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are like touch strips?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So cool. I might have to go on a wish list. I didn't think I was going to come out of this wish listing one of these things, but
Hydrasynth sales after Mike's live stream.
I know, right? It's like everything you've done sounds incredible to me.
And then again, it's that force limitation of you got 3 oscillators, you've got this many, filters, make sounds with only that, I like it.
So now, Mike, when you're using this, but how are you sampling this? Are you sampling notes? Are you doing long phrases? Like, how are you using it?
Well, for that, I got to take you over to the MPC.
Let's go.
The journey continues.
Let's go. Were there any last questions about the Hydrasynth?
I think that's a great introduction to it.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, can I ask real quick, Mike, what else was in the running when you were shopping for this?
All of the usual stuff. Like, I don't remember all the brands out there, but a lot of the name brands, like the the Mini Log and the other brand names are, but I'd have to go look.
The Korg is the Mini Log, right? That's
Yeah,
that.
the
If
Korg
I
Mini
recall,
Log, and then
that doesn't
there
have
was,
a lot of layout on the front like this does, if I recall, right?
no, and that one, and I have an Uno over here that is much more like those sorts of things, where it's not a galaxy and you're looking for stars, right? It's like you're on TV and you're just changing the channel, right? So everything is
you're on rails
good,
a little
but
bit.
the options aren't nearly as deep.
Yeah.
So this is not a beginner synth, right?
Right.
This shouldn't be your first synth purchase if you're really trying to just like get in and make cool sounds. This is for nerds who just want to like play with sound, right? Because it does a lot. But you know, not everyone's going to be a hit, right? So like if I go into the random over here and just say, okay, generate a random patch. Well, this one makes sound, so that's cool.
It sounds like you've done this a lot and they haven't made sounds.
Oh yeah. Or like the delay is set so high on it that you've got to hold it down for 30 seconds before it starts to make sound. Or that's a delay with the envelope, you know, the attack.
Can I ask when like, is there a gut feeling as to when you reach for this and when you reach for the Uno?
It's really just like what I'm feeling like.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you must have a feeling like, oh, the Uno's kind of better for this, and the Hydrasynth is kind of better for that, maybe, or no?
Well, the Uno is an analog synth, and so like when I want that like really crunchy, dirty stuff, that's when I go to the Uno. This is like a finely fine-tuned instrument, whereas that's like a Jeep.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I'm gonna hit something a lot sooner on the Uno and be like, ooh.
Got it. Okay.
But
so there's an
immediacy
immediacy
to it. Nearly as interesting as what you could potentially do on this if you want to put the time in. This is something that you sit around and you're like, all I'm going to do is spend an hour sitting at this thing, messing around. And if I come out with a patch at the end of it, sweet. If not, I had fun anyway.
Got it. Okay.
One last question before you move on. Does it have MIDI in? So if you wanted to use like a bigger keyboard, you could.
Yes. MIDI, cool. USB, and standard MIDI cables. You can do both.
Okay, cool.
And in fact, that's part of how I work with it in the MPC. So I'll be covering MIDI in more detail here.
Perfect. Well, that sounds like a good segue then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the MPC. It's super cool. It's awesome. Y'all love it.
Sold.
So let me start with like a quick breakdown of what the MPC is and how it works, and then I'll talk about how I bring the Hydrasynth in, because the Hydrasynth is kind of like a higher level MPC function, right? So this is MPC. It's been updated to MPC 3.4.1, which is the brand new OS. There's a big brouhaha in the community about it because, you know, MPC has been around for decades. Some of the biggest hip hop names in the business, Kanye West being one of them, have done entire albums on this thing. The MPC is very popular in the hip hop communities, particularly as a sampling device. So that's not what I use it for, but that is what a lot of people use MPC for. I would say that the closest I get to using it in a way that a lot of people do traditionally as a sampling device is like when I create those found sound videos, like that Chopper song that I put in the ambient sound challenge. That's a much more traditional thing where you get a bunch of samples. In this case, the samples were things that I just took with my Zoom H4, and then I would assign them to the pads here. So I would have different sounds on each of the pads. And in fact, that's how drum kits are laid out. So if I switch to one of the drum kits, you can see this drum kit that I have set up here. This is what I call a trap drum kit. So I have 2 kicks, I have 2 bass sounds, and then I tend to set up my drum kits as the way that they recommend on like finger drummings, which is not the way that MPC people use it. MPC people usually put their kick in the bottom left-hand corner, and they're always just like kick, kick, kick. Whereas I'm like, So I like to be able to like switch around. So I've got my,
Where are you putting your kick?
My kick's down here, these red buttons.
Oh, okay.
And then I've got my snare sounds in the middle. Now these aren't like traditional drum snares. These are like samples that you would play in the space of a snare as you're putting together a track, right? And then I've got 4 hats set up here. This is more of a closed hat. Yeah. And then that's more of a ride. Then I got a ride there as well. And then these are my toms. They sound kind of weird here because I'm on my kick track and I've got all of my effects and everything set up to emphasize the kick and give it a real good deep sound. So if I were to switch over to my snares, that's actually how I have my snares mixed for this particular track. And then my hats. And oh yeah, I'm not using toms on this one. Okay, so I was saying the MPC, the new version came out, and there's a lot of big difference. Like this window right here that we're looking at, the arranger window is brand new with MPC 3.4.1, so or what we just call MPC 3. So the previous one was known as MPC 2, and there was no DAW-like arranger in that, nor has there ever been. So that's why it's so controversial. It's like, you're trying to jam a DAW into our MPC, how dare you? For me, I think it's like super awesome to be able to see everything laid out and to be able to move a looper back and forth and pick the sections that I'm working on. So if I want to work on this section right here, I can just move to that section and work on it. In fact, I can go in here and say I want to look at the snares directly and be looking at them closely. And if I want to, I can go in there and edit the snares, move them around, make them bigger, that kind of thing. And it will loop back inside of the loop of the section that I'm working on, and then I can just move track to track to work on each pieces. So I've got my drum kit set up at top. Did I actually move that? I didn't know I could do that. No, I didn't. So yeah, you got drum kits. These are one of the track types that you can have in here. If I go in here and say new track, I can show all the different types of tracks that you can put in here. I've never used CV, so I don't know what that's all about. But theoretically, you can use CV with MPC as well. But audio is going to be just recording straight audio in. So this is going to be microphone, vocals, or audio coming from an outboard synth like the Hydrasynth. So, and then a drum kit is just basically 16 pads that you assign samples to. The more common case that you would use it for is to put together a drum kit so that you can play all of your different sounds for your percussion. But a lot of people who create hip hop and that sort of stuff on MPC will put all sorts of different sounds on there and, you know, just bang them out on a single drum pad. That may be the only track that they have in their beat, and they're just got their 16 samples and they're playing them around and making a song out of it. Oops, I didn't actually need to add a plugin. A plugin is just going to give you access to all of the internal instruments that are inside of the MPC, and there's a lot of them. I can go into that in a bit. Key group. Key group is super awesome. What it is it allows you to basically build a soft synth around a single sound. So you can take a good example of this. I did this in the Chopper song. Is I had this spring sound that was just like I went and took that sound and turned it into a key group, and it spreads it out over your piano, right? So that you know, you can play all the different sounds that spring in a whole bunch of different sounds in a scale. And but better than that, inside of the key group settings is basically a full-fledged synth. So you can set all sorts of LFOs, envelopes, effects, and all that sorts of things on your key group and affect each of the sounds on each of the keys. So it's really deep. They've just recently upgraded with a lot of stuff that it can do. So it's a lot more powerful than it was just even a few months ago. So I haven't fully explored that yet, but that's also really cool. So to look at some of the plugins that we have, get to the right thing. There are more plugins available. I don't have all of them since most of them you have to pay for to get added to your MPC system. But every single one of these is basically a soft synth. Hype is a waveform synth. It's one of the more popular ones, and I use it a lot because it sounds really cool. Midi is a play on, why is the name escaping me right now? The really old classic Moog.
The Mini Moog, yeah.
Mini Moog. So this is going to be like if you go in there and pick a preset or whatever, and then go into the editing, it even looks like a Moog going through there. And I could probably spend an hour just going through like all the stuff that is available in each of these individual synths. But suffice to say, there's a lot. And then Jura is basically a play on Jupiter? No. Some other synth, classic synth that began with a J. I forget the name of it right now.
Juno?
Yeah, I was going to say
Juno, yes. And it's got that old 80s vibe in the interface there. But yeah, you've got a lot of classic Juno sounds in here, and then the same sort of LFO and oscillators and VCAs and filters and sort of stuff that you had on the old classic Juno, including a really, really simple delay and reverb. You can turn it on or you can turn it off.
It looks like an app store on there with synthesizers.
Yeah, you can go and buy a whole bunch of soft synths, just like you could, I'm sure, for your DAWs. But this is a walled garden sort of thing. The only thing that you're going to buy is the stuff that Akai and their other family of brands, Air being the manufacturer of most of these synths, those are the only ones that you can buy. Although that also recently changed because Native Instruments just got invited into the walled garden. So you now have access to a lot of Native Instruments popular sound expansion libraries and their soft synths in MPC.
Oh, cool.
Right on.
So Hype and Jura and Mini-D are probably my favorite. Drum synth is really cool in that you can actually use it to shape a snare, shape a kick entirely using a synthesizer and tweak all the little variables you want about how it works. Subfactory is exactly what it sounds like. It makes 808s, and it allows you to do all sorts of cool features to try and come up with different sounds for 808s. I can go into some of these and like, here's your 808. Put it in there. There we go. That sounds weird on the call, but trust me, it's a really, really heavy 808 bassy sounding synth. Electric is going to be like a lot of your piano sounds, electric piano sounds. Ring the Alarm is more like a mod kit thing that you would find in like a modular synth thing. It's just like one wacky sort of feature that makes some weird noises. Bassline is also good for generating bassy sounds. Tube synth is a waveform synth. OPX4, I have not learned this one, nor will I ever probably, because this is a full-on FM synth, and it is like 1,000 menus deep to work in. It's mind-boggling. I don't know that I ever want to go into that. So anyway, you have a large library available to you as your plug-in instruments if you're adding, a plug-in type instrument. So there's audio, drums, or just samples, which is where most traditional MPC people are, is they're in the drums with the samples. And then you also have plug-in instruments. And basically an additional soft synths in the key group where you can turn any sound that you can bring in through audio or sample into a wavetable synth as well. When it comes to like making a beat, the way I generally approach it is I don't use sequences, but I have a second sequence set up here. This is sort of like an illustration of the approach that I would take. So normally I would start with, let's say, I'm doing, I'll start with a bass sound, right? I'll lay that down. And that's just like this. I can go and clear this off real quick. Go in here, go record, play, start. If I did a terrible job of recording it there, I can always hit the undo and go back to the way it was before. And then I'll just keep adding stuff on. I'll be like, okay, add some hats. Maybe a kick. Get that snare in there.
How is it deciding to add notes when you tap those?
Well, so I've already recorded this. This whole grid is already recorded. So I demonstrated how I would record the bass.
So you were just unmuting them?
I'm just unmuting them, right?
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, the real process would be I'd be banging them out on the pads, right?
Got it.
So I could go, in fact, let me show what that sort of looks like. I'll go to a fresh sequence here and start there. Clear that out. So now I've done the bass, right? I can hit overdub, go to the hats.
Is that quantized?
It can be, yeah.
Do you quantize?
Yeah, better question.
Because when you said it can be, it made it sound like you don't.
So I do keep it on Quantize, but the Quantize isn't very good in my opinion. So I'm usually, I'll lay down this stuff to get something that I sort of like, but then I'm going to go right into the MIDI on each one of these and get them perfect, get them exactly the way I want. If one's a little bit off, I'm going to take it back over and get it where it's supposed to be.
Got it.
So that would be how I'd be laying stuff down, right? And then eventually I'll get to a point where I've got, 8 or 9 tracks, 6 or 7 drum tracks, a bass line, and some synths laid together that all sort of sound good when played together, right? And that's what this is. I've got the metronome on right now. And then I'll take this and I'll say, okay, let's double the length, let's double the length, let's double the length, double the length. And now I have 64 bars of these 4 or 8 bars that I've laid down, right? And so then I'll take this looper, which is this white bar across the top, and I'll start sculpting out my intro. So let's say I don't want to hear the chords yet. Let's get rid of those. I don't want to hear the cluck yet, and I don't want to hear the pads yet because I'm just building up maybe a bass sound and some hats. So I'll get rid of everything else. And so now, get rid of the kick. If I expand the loop out, you'll see I've got, okay, start of an intro, right? And then I'll just sort of carve that thing all the way out. So now let me talk about how I would bring in a Hydrasynth sound, because this is not actually demonstrated here yet. I'll go to sequence 3 for that, just so that we don't have all other stuff. In fact, let me go ahead and zoom this up to 6 bars, and I will just get rid of these first 2. Or not.
You clearly know this interface so well that you can just fly around this thing, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, except I'm not actually doing the thing I want to do. Delete bar. First bar.
Is the touch screen pretty good? Like, or does you ever do you miss tap and you're like, I tapped that, but it didn't respond? Or is it pretty decent?
It is pretty good. I very rarely have problems. I know a lot of people in the groups that run into problems, but that's because they're usually making rookie mistakes. I'm baffled as to why this is not working.
I unfortunately need to go, but thank you so much, Mike. This is fascinating.
But yeah, we're out of time, huh?
Oh,
we're over time.
I don't know about everybody else, but I just have to go.
Right. See you, Paul.
All right. Thank you.
So yeah, in interest of time, I'll try and move quickly here. So I've got an audio and a MIDI track set up here. So I'll zoom in here so you can see them better. So I've got Hydra audio and Hydra MIDI. So what this means is that basically I can do a full channel control. And what I like to do is I'll set the MIDI to in. So this is not actually playing anything that's recorded back. It's only going to be recording sounds that are coming from the Hydrasynth. Let me put this on a patch that is audible. Okay, and then I will go and also have a MIDI track set up. And the MIDI track will just basically be controlling the Hydrasynth. It's kind of funny because when I hit the buttons on the MPC, you can hear the Hydrasynth making sound. That's the Hydrasynth patch that's playing when I hit these keys. But since the Hydrasynth itself is also a MIDI controller, I can use it to control itself. So I am sending MIDI signals from the Hydrasynth to the MPC, which is then capturing the sound coming back from the Hydrasynth on the audio channel. So what's cool about that is I can go in here and actually record MIDI for the Hydrasynth. And it gets the pitch bends too, right?
Nice.
So right now, this is, if I were to save this and play it back, I wouldn't hear anything. If I were to export this out to audio or something, I wouldn't hear anything because all I have saved into this program right now is the MIDI. But since the Hydrasynth is currently hooked up and on, it will play the MIDI back. But in fact, if I go and like change the patch on the Hydrasynth, when I play this back now, that's what it's going to play. So it's not actually like in the project until I record the audio, but that's really easy to do at this point once I've got that set up. So I've recorded the MIDI, and generally I'll go into the MIDI and like fine tune the notes and get them exactly where I want them. If I made a mistake or something, I'll edit that out, that sort of thing. And then when I got everything nice the way I want it, the MIDI sounding really good, when I play it back on the Hydrasynth, it's giving me the sound that I want. Then I'll go into the audio and just hit record, let the MIDI play in and record the audio onto the MPC. And so now you can see I've got audio here. And in fact, if I go back into the track and mute the MIDI, so the MIDI's not actually doing anything anymore. And then go to the audio. If I play it, I'm not going to hear anything because the audio is still expecting in. But if I switch it back to auto, now I have my recorded audio from the Hydrasynth. And generally what I'll do is I will keep both tracks in my project so that if I want to tweak the patch or something, I can still have the MIDI to record it back in as the new audio after I tweak the patch. Another cool thing I can do that I didn't quite do here is I can also merge on this MIDI. So I can record a MIDI once that is the key performance, and then I can do a separate pass on it that is merging where I'm doing like mod wheel, pitch wheel, adjusting other MIDI parameters on there and record them as well. And then get all that played back when I get the audio. And then if I want to be really fancy, when I'm recording the audio back in, I can go and do stuff like twist the cutoff, adjust the resonance and that sort of thing to get effects that are affecting the audio as it's recording back into the MPC.
Nice.
So that's that. And then I guess to sort of kick to the end here, I'll do the baked cake out of the oven. So if I take all those ingredients that I've been talking about and put it together, you know, I've got a 107 bar song that I've put together. This is called Believe. And it's using those same sounds that I was demonstrating earlier. There's a lot more going on, obviously, since I've added vocals and that sort of stuff. And then you can see the Hydrasynth glass patch is right here with the audio and the MIDI for it. That's weird. Ran into a memory issue there, it looks like. That I screwed up my... Bear with me.
While you're figuring that out, since there's only a few minutes left, I like your workflow. I think it's really cool that you're doing everything outside of a DAW. You know, it's very hands-on, and I think it's a very cool approach.
Yeah, I like it. So yeah, I got it back. I can't believe the record promise. I can't believe so many bodies. I can't believe the hidden horror. I can't believe we've been our morals. I can't believe in all this bullshit. I can't believe we're wading through it. I can't believe they break the system. I can't believe they would forgive it. I can't believe they would forgive it. Here comes that Hydrasynth patch. This try doesn't come with an exemption. This time there will be no redemption. And that's my presentation.
Sweet. Sweet. Man.
Yeah,
Well, I still got 2 people here. I guess that's not too bad.
yeah. We had a few. I think Cam must have had to leave because he was here. But
Yeah. Sundays.
yeah.
Who knows?
Yep.
Well, any parting words? It looks like our call ends in 2 minutes, but did you kind of get through everything, Mike?
Most of the stuff I wanted to show, yeah, just basically cover how I create a new sound and then how I mold it into a song and put together a project on the MPC without ever touching a computer.
Awesome. Yeah, that really opened my mind for the workflow, honestly. So that was really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Now I totally get what you're doing. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I think we're going to get booted here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks for presenting. That was great.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out the Zoom thing some other time.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Yeah. I'm almost there myself, so we'll compare notes.
We'll share notes.
More to come. More to come.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. See ya.